Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome. Welcome to our Chain of Iron release day Victorian Tea Party live show. It's a mouthful.
Truly.
So, welcome, everyone. I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves first. So, hi, my name is Hannah. You are on my channel.
Welcome, Hannah.
Thank you.
I'm Jenny, and I'm from the channel This Story Ain't Over.
And I'm Emma from the channel Emma Books.
So very soon we will be joined by the one and only Cassandra Clare. She's going to come in a little bit, and we're going to play some games. We're going to answer some questions and talk about Chain of Iron and the release. So at the start of this, we just wanted to talk about like what we're going to be doing in this live show. So we're basically going to be having like a little tea party. We have these adorable little cups to celebrate the release of Chain of Iron, since it just came out today. We're having a little Victorian tea party. They're super beautiful.
The matching saucers.
Yes,
Yep.
they're custom made, and they have a quote from Chain of Iron in them. It says, "You never forget your first betrayal." It's super beautiful, so super excited about that. And Emma, did you want to talk about the tea as well?
Yes. So if you have not heard of Sympathy, they are a like tea sort of like box service, and they released an exciting tea box inspired by Chain of Gold last year for the release of Chain of Gold, and they also have a Chain of Iron one. So inside comes with a couple of different types of tea that are inspired by the different characters and settings related to Chain of Iron. So if you are a tea lover like ourselves and want to have your own Victorian tea party, I definitely recommend checking out the Sympathy Chain of Iron box.
Yep. So we're super, super excited about all that. So basically what we're going to be, I just wanted to like give you guys a rundown of how this is all going to go. Once Cassie joins us, we're going to have some questions for her, talk about Chain of Iron a little bit. I know a lot of people are wondering about spoilers. We're not going to be talking about any spoilers for Chain of Iron. There might be some very light spoilery discussion of the Infernal devices and Chain of Gold. But besides that, we're not going to be talking about spoilers. So feel free to stick around if you haven't read the books. If you haven't finished anything and you don't want to be spoiled, you're fine. So we're going to be asking her some questions. We are also going to have a little trivia game. Cassie's going to quiz us on some Shadowhunter trivia that I feel like is going to be interesting and really just test my knowledge of this entire world. And then go ahead, Emma.
I was just going to say, I'm equal parts like competitive and ready to dominate the trivia, but I'm also like, oh my gosh, I haven't read the Infernal devices in a while. Like I have no clue what she's going to ask us, but I'm excited.
I feel like you are going to dominate the trivia.
Yeah, you're definitely going to dominate.
Ask one question like, who is Henry Branwell? And I'm going to be like, who? I've never heard of him. That's honestly what's going to happen. But yeah, she is going to quiz us a little bit, and then we're going to just answer some Victorian related questions as we enjoy our tea and just have a fun time to celebrate the release of this super exciting book. But we also all decided to dress up a little bit. So we're all wearing our like kind of Victorian themed outfits a little bit that we just kind of put together. I feel like I look a little bit more like a fairy or Sealy queen than Victorian, but
I feel very Grace Blackthorn today with my Anna Lightwood necklace, a combination of the two.
I love it.
And I was curious to ask, while we wait for Cassie, I'm curious what kind of tea you guys are drinking today.
Ooh, yes. I'm drinking classic Earl Grey tea.
Delicious. What about you, Jenny?
I'm drinking orange pekoe because that's the only thing in my house.
Ooh, that sounds delicious. And I am an English breakfast tea fanatic. It is like my favorite tea with oat milk and sugar. So I am just like set and ready for our tea.
Do you take your tea with milk and sugar?
Always. Every single time. Unless it's like a herbal, like flowery kind of like nighttime tea. But you know, when I'm like pounding the tea throughout the day, it's always with like milk and sugar, which some people find odd and other people are like, that's how you drink tea.
See, I have such a I mean, growing up in like a Persian household, we don't put anything in our tea. Like sometimes people put sugar in it, but I put nothing in my tea. So like I can't drink it with milk and sugar. So it's always just
I
plain
totally
tea.
get that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm Sri Lankan, so like we do both, like with milk, sometimes plain. So like the milk thing never bothered me.
I also wanted to ask you all, like, obviously we're not gonna Cassie's actually here, so we're gonna add her in.
Here.
We're gonna add her in just 1 second. Here we go. All right.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Cassie.
You guys look gorgeous. Oh my
So
god.
do you.
So do you.
Happy release day.
Yes.
Oh, book birthday.
Congrats.
Yes. How are you feeling about the release?
I'm
So excited.
It's really cool to finally have people be able to read it. You know, it's to go for such a long time when I know what happens in the book and nobody else what happens in the book. And so now it's actually out there and starting to get people, you know, telling me that they're reading it and having reactions, and that's great.
It's amazing. And I love your Victorian Edwardian get up today.
Cute. Like this whole thing. Only see a little bit of butt.
I know. I feel like we all look really cohesive. I think this worked out really well.
Yeah.
Definitely. We're all matching.
We do look like we could be having a real tea party.
Yeah.
Cassie,
do you have your tea on hand?
Our cool teacup.
Yes.
Cheers.
They're so beautiful. Yes, cheers.
I know. I love it. When I got this, I was like, this is so great. I love these teacups.
I know.
And at home, they have these cute little moths on the saucer. They're
so perfect.
Yeah, really cute.
Congratulations again on the release of Chain of Iron. So excited about it. So we wanted to start off by just asking you some Chain of Iron related questions, last hours related questions, just chat about it a little bit and chat about the release. So first off, how have your ideas for the last hours changed since when you first envisioned them as you've been like writing them as the series has gone on?
I mean, definitely. Like when I first envisioned Last Hours, it was 6 or 7 years ago. And I know, a long time. And I had a sort of general idea, you know, that I wanted to write about the kids of the characters in the Infernal Devices. And I had done this family tree. And then I'd never thought, you know, that I was going to go back and revisit it. So, but every time I looked at the family tree, I started to think about the names, you know, as people and like, what would they be like? What would Will and Tessa's son and daughter be like? And what would, you know, these various characters be like? And they started to sort of take shape in my head. But it definitely has changed. I mean, all stories, you know, sort of change in the making of them and how they sort of work out. And so, you know, Cordelia became a much more central character, and then she pretty much became the main character. And Alistair, I didn't really know what he was like for a really long time. And then I kind of sort of figured out what was going on with him. And he was, I mean, he appears in some of the short stories, and he's a much bigger jerk than he is later.
Definitely.
Yeah. It took a while to like get to know a character. And so earlier on I was like, Alistair, what a jerk. And then later I was like, oh, but you know, Cordelia is really not like that. And why would her brother be like that? And what's going on with him? And, you know, what's sort of animating this, you know, hostility that he has towards everybody in the world. And so, yeah, I mean, it definitely, you know, Lucy's sort of power and James's power developed later. If I go back and look at the very early stuff, I'm like, oh, wow, it's really changed.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess I'll jump in. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I'll go next. So, Cassie, you are known for writing some really heartbreaking plot twists and endings. So, how badly can readers expect to be hurt for our favorite characters in Chain of Iron and Chain of Thorns?
I mean, I didn't think that Chain of Iron was that bad. It's got a cliffhanger ending. It definitely has a cliffhanger ending. It sort of ends with big emotional sort of moment that isn't resolved yet, because it can't be. But I've tried to figure out how to say this stuff without spoilers.
Of course.
Lord of Shadows level bad. That was a real bad ending for a book.
Oh,
that was.
Yeah.
It was.
I don't feel I've still recovered from that yet. So it seems like you're trying to spare us a little bit.
Definitely that level of trauma. I don't think you can visit on people like every time you write a second book, or they'll just stop reading the second book and skip to the third one. And all stories have a different structure, you know. Like I knew that like this really terrible thing had to happen at the end of Lord of Shadows to kind of precipitate what happened in the next book, and I feel like this is more like the end of Clockwork Prince, where there's not like a terrible loss that's huge that's suffered by the characters in the same way as Lord of Shadows, but there is a pretty intense emotional cliffhanger. I think we've all read Clockwork Prince. If you haven't, it's been 10 years. Get on that. It ends with Will being like, I love you, Tessa. You know, I can finally tell you. And she's like, but I'm engaged to Jem. And he's like, when did that happen? How did that happen? And she's like, I love him and I can't unengage myself to him. It already made this agreement, you know, and I can't even hear you out about your feelings, you know, and that's sort of that's the end of the book. And so in terms of a cliffhanger, it's an emotional cliffhanger. You know, you're like, wow, this, you know, situation can't hold the way that it is. It's something that's going to happen. And I think that's pretty much what I would say is the quality of the cliffhanger of Chain of Iron.
I'm not ready.
I'm not.
Yeah,
I feel like
not ready.
That whole description.
Your emotional cliffhangers really break me the most. They break me the most.
It's interesting because, like, often I think emotional like cliffhangers have a more of an impact than like, you know, the world is about to be destroyed type cliffhangers, you know, because you're sort of like, and then, you know, there's a huge bomb or there's a laser on the moon or something, and you're kind of like, okay, yeah, sure, you know, danger. But like in cliffhanger, you're much less sure how that's going to work itself out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was 100% destroyed by the end of Clockwork Prince, so not looking forward to
yes, I'm like
Chain of Iron.
It's been 10 years, but I'm still crying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I feel like Cassie's like, oh, like don't worry, it's just like Clockwork Prince level emotional, and I'm like, I still have not recovered. Like
No.
that's not very reassuring.
Yeah.
It was fun to write. I remember that one because I kept writing the end and then giving it to Holly. Like, she was with me when I was writing it and being like, are you sad? Are you really sad? Are you really, really sad? Are you crying? I visited terrible treatment on her.
That is amazing. Well, okay, I guess I'll go with our next question, which is, what are the real life influences that you included in Chain of Iron?
You mean like books and movies kind of influences?
Yeah,
or
like any kind of influences that you had. I know like the series in general is a little bit inspired by Great Expectations, which I just love that whole concept.
Yeah, I mean, Great Expectations definitely. It's not really a retelling; it's more like a reimagining. But I just feel like Dickens doesn't get enough credit for love stories that he writes. When I was presented with Dickens in like high school, it was like, here's a lot of stories about Victorian debtors' prisons, and you know, the unfair, you know, and the terrible like conditions of the working class, and all of that is true. But he also writes a pretty great, you know, unrequited love. So like the Tale of Two Cities was sort of the inspiration for Infernal Devices, and then I was always kind of sad I couldn't use any of the from Great Expectations because there's some really beautiful like speeches about love and just, you know, it's interesting. It's an interesting book because Pip has this enormous love for Estella, but he doesn't know her at all. Like she's just this unknowable force that he has this incredible passion for. And he kind of gives her this speech at one point, you know, you have been in, you know, every prospect I have ever seen. You have been in every stone, you know, that makes up London. And he's like, and at the end, he's like, you are part of the little good in me, part of the evil. You are part, you know, part of myself. But he's kind of admits that he doesn't know her, you know, she's like an image in his head of something that he wants. And like, as a human being, he doesn't know her that well, but he feels, you know, but all the feelings that he feels are still very real. And I think that Dickens does a great job sort of describing that feeling of loving someone that does not love you back. And so with Great Expectations, I really wanted to do something a little bit different with the whole like idea that Estella was created to be her mother's sort of tool of vengeance on society. And so we have, Tatiana, who, like Miss Havisham, lives in this crazy, rundown, falling apart house and has this ward, her daughter, Grace, who she has basically trained to be a unfeeling monster. But Grace is still a person, so it really was, I've always thought, we never really do get to know Estella in Great Expectations, and her unknowability is part of the story. But like, I really wanted to do a little bit more with getting to know Grace and why she is the way she is. So there's a good portion of Chain of Iron that's from her perspective. And it's interesting because, I'm not sure whether it will make people like her. I think it will make people understand her more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've really enjoyed reading all of the flashbacks from Grace and Chain of Iron. It definitely does make you understand her character a lot more.
Yeah, you can sort of see the forces that shaped her, even if you don't like the stuff that she's currently doing in the present day, which is totally understandable. It's really bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we heard that you actually have some like trivia questions for us.
I do.
About yay. We're very excited for this, and also a little bit
also
anxious.
nervous.
Yes.
Oh my God. Okay, here we go. So let's start with the Infernal Devices trivia.
Okay.
All right. So what made the mark of the star on Will's shoulder?
Ooh, an angel. Wasn't it? Was the angel specifically ethereal? But it was the angel from the clockwork necklace.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
The angel in the clockwork necklace. Okay, see, this one, so my publisher ran a bunch of these by me, and I didn't remember the answer to this question, so I'm curious to see whether you
we won't know.
No. I was like, what? Whose name does Will call out when he purges himself of vampire blood in Clockwork Angel?
Jem.
Oh,
it's not Jem. I also thought it was Jem.
Is it
okay?
It's his sister, right?
Hannah, you got it for
Cecily,
sure.
Right?
Oh.
Yeah.
The one chapter I have absolutely memorized is that chapter. I have that chapter memorized by heart.
I totally also thought it was Jem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's the obvious one.
He might have, but he didn't.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good trivia question.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. And then I was like, oh, right. Like, I remembered because it's the first time we actually ever hear Cecily's name.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, right. So how old were Will and Jem when they had their parabaptize ceremony? They were really young.
I forget how young they can be, like the youngest that they can be.
The youngest you can be is 12 and the oldest you can be is 18.
Yes.
Were they?
My guess is 12 or 13. But I'm not confident in that answer.
13.
Okay.
Which one is it?
It's 13. It's 13.
It's 13. That makes sense.
They meet when they're 12. So I figure they needed a year to get to know each other before they took the big plunge. Right. Okay, this one's not that hard. In the end of the Infernal Devices, who becomes head of the London Institute?
Oh.
I mean, actually, I'm not going to, I looked at this and I was like, this is actually what happens between Infernal Devices and Last Hours.
Yeah.
Hannah, go for it.
It's Charlotte Randall, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Charlotte's already the head of the Institute.
Is it Will and Tessa?
Will and Tessa.
You're right.
Yeah, I totally thought Charlotte too.
I totally thought Charlotte too.
But that makes more sense.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
The head for the whole series.
Okay, Last Hours trivia. Which one of these, this is hilarious, which one of these is not one of Anna's love interests? Virginia Woolf, Hypatia Vex, Jane Austen, or Ariadne Bridgestock?
Jane Austen.
Yes, you're right. It's
yeah, okay. I feel like Jane Austen is totally the era before that, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised though.
No, I mean if they met, I was like, there's no secret. They're only women who have not met Anna. How old was Jesse when he died?
Oh,
12?
He's still he has not changed from the time that he died.
17.
Yes.
I think I just read that part in the book.
It's exactly the same when he died.
Yeah.
So there's a short story there where we first heard about James and Grace. Do you remember the name?
Oh goodness. Is it
Oh, God. I love that short story too.
Me too.
Does anyone have a guess for the title? Because I have a guess for the title, but I don't know.
I don't. Go for it.
Is it the Whitechapel Fiend?
No, it's actually, I think it comes right before the Whitechapel Fiend. It's the Midnight thing.
The Midnight Air.
Yes. That's it.
That was the other one.
What's the name of Lucy's terrible novel
Oh,
that she's writing?
Beautiful Cordelia. Sorry.
That's right. Beautiful
Oh,
Cordelia.
sorry. Okay.
I know.
I'm like, no, that's
like,
wrong.
too easy. Who's Matthew's favorite author and playwright?
Oscar Wilde.
Oscar Wilde.
Of course. See, these aren't so bad. And there's one last one. What is Thomas's tattoo of?
Oh,
It's on his arm. It's like right here.
Again, I have a guess, not sure if it's true, so I'm willing to give other people the option to guess first.
you go
Is
for
it
it,
a
Emma.
compass?
Yes. It's a
Oh.
story.
I was about to say a map, and I was like, it's not a map.
Close enough.
A map like Prison Break.
Truly, how to get out of the silent city.
Well, that is all the trivia questions that I have for you. So
Those were some really good ones.
They were.
Yeah.
actually,
No, they
Yeah.
weren't. I was expecting to have like no clue about any of them,
Uh-huh.
but they were actually pretty decent.
Yeah, they were like the right kind of challenging.
I know. It's because whenever I do trivia at like events, I always have to think of something that people can't Google immediately.
Mm.
Oh, sure.
So
Yeah.
so these were, but you know, I can see you guys, so I can see if you're Googling, but like also these are not, so I always have to think of something incredibly obscure. So I usually go with what's the name of Simon's cat? That no one ever remembers.
Oh, Chairman Meow.
That's
Right?
Max's cat.
That's
That's,
Max.
yeah.
There are
Oh,
three.
it's Yossarian. Isn't
Yes!
it Yossarian?
Oh, I'm
Yes.
impressed. No one ever remembers.
Read
Never.
that series way too many times. And I just have to say, I'm very impressed at all the people in the chat who also got the answers correct. It is just like a field of all the correct answers. So y'all did very good too.
Super impressive. Should we take? Do you want to take questions
Man club.
from people, or I don't know if you have like a schedule or if you have more questions for me or anything like that. But we could also take questions from the viewers.
We
Also,
had
Texting me and I can't figure out how to turn it off.
you're okay.
All the happy release day texts.
Mhm.
We actually had just a few more. We actually just had like a few more questions that were just mostly like Victorian era themed and stuff
Mhm.
for like all of us to just have conversations about.
Of course.
So we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, right before you joined, but we also wanted to ask you as well. What's your favorite type of tea since we are drinking? What tea are you currently drinking?
Let's see. I've got my Sips By box here, and I had
Yes, me as well.
Let's see. Like what's my favorite tea? Like just in general.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, like what do you prefer to drink?
Mhm.
Well, I'm obsessed with bubble tea, but I don't think that for that counts. It's
Same
really
though.
I'll count it. Bubble tea
I
is the
say
greatest
that
thing on earth.
counts for sure.
Yeah.
I love how
What
you have
kind
it
of
on
bubble
deck.
tea?
Oh, it's
Yes,
so
what kind?
good. Oh, what kind? Well, the place that's near us makes a really good rose flavor like milk tea.
Ooh,
So it's
I
got like
love
that
rose.
kind of, yeah, I know. I love that like slightly like florally rose flavor. So it's like a rose flavor bubble milk tea with tapioca pearls.
Delicious.
Think about classic tea, like classic tea. I like I think it's called Lady Grey. It's like a bird. It's a version of Earl Grey that has like vanilla along with the bergamot, and I really like that.
Mhm.
So that's my favorite. What about you guys? What's your favorite tea?
I am an English breakfast tea lover through and through. It's like I can drink endless cups of tea every day of just English breakfast tea with oat milk and sugar. That is my tea order.
That sounds good. What about you?
I'm an Earl Grey. I love Earl Grey. Grew up on it, so I drink it all the time. But with no milk and sugar, just plain.
Jason, you would disagree on that one. It's bergamot.
I know.
Very random.
I was living with a roommate who hated bergamot when I wrote that book, and so I put that in for them because I love bergamot. So, of the things that Jace hates, I think it was bergamot and cucumber. I hate cucumber. Yep. She hated bergamot.
Yeah, I love that. I did not drink Earl Grey for many years because I had never tried it, and Jace was like, "I hate bergamot." I was like, "Oh, if Jace hates it, like I can't try it." No, but it's very good. It's very good.
No, and you were like, "Jace, you betrayed me," right?
Truly, so many years. And Jenny, what's your favorite kind of tea?
Oh yeah, I mostly drink coffee, but I do love orange pekoe because that's what I grew up on, and that was what's always in the house.
Delicious. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right.
I have another tea question for you. Where is your favorite tea shop or coffee shop anywhere in the world? Because I know that you do a lot of traveling, so I'm curious if you've gotten to any favorites.
Probably the tea shop there's the tea shop in Fortnum and Mason in London, which I just love because it hasn't changed at all in the time since it was founded, basically. And it's exactly the same. And they have, you just feel like you're sort of part of history. And then my second favorite is a place that I would recommend to anyone who's visiting New York. It's called Tea and Sympathy, and it's on the Lower West Side. And I can't remember the exact address, but fortunately we all have Google. So Tea and Sympathy, and it's like a place for like homesick British expats. So they have all the British chocolate and all the like coronation chicken and, anything that you are super used to if you live in the UK and that you might be missing if you're in the US. And then they also have a ton of different kinds of tea. My favorite one they have is a chocolate and vanilla tea that really tastes like chocolate and vanilla.
I actually went to Tea and Sympathy for Valentine's Day, so I can co-sign everything you just said about it. It was such a wonderful, cute little, very traditional, like English tea shop. So I also highly recommend it. That's so funny.
Totally, like it really feels to me like wherever you go in England, like, and I've done a lot of like traveling around doing research books and stuff, you will find a tea shop no matter how small the town is, will always have a tea shop. And it really reminds me of like a tea shop in a small town in England.
Exactly.
Okay, I'll ask the next question. So what is something from the time period of the last hours, so like the Edwardian era or even like the late Victorian era, that you wish you could, bring back to our modern world?
Oh, that's such a good question. There's so much fun stuff. Okay, let's see. The clothes. The clothes are beautiful. Yes. I mean, we all love them. And not just clothes for women, though, the clothes for men. Like at the time and earlier, men were allowed to be interested in fashion. They were allowed to care about the clothes and what they wear and what the colors were and the fabrics. Like you could have a whole conversation about like your tailor and your coat and where you got it and what fabric it was. And you were expected to want to look nice and follow fashion. And then there came this time period where like suddenly it was like men were told that it was not masculine to like care about how you look and like want to match your top pocket square to your tie or whatever. And I just really feel like that's unfortunate because, men should be allowed as well. If we wish for gender parity and equality, men should also be allowed to, enjoy wearing wild colors and picking, and enjoying, looking nice and picking fabrics and all of that stuff. And we shouldn't sort of gender that. And so I had a lot of fun in last hours with the men's clothes. And like, Matthew obviously cares obsessively about So all of his clothes, like I got to do all of this research into like gentlemen's magazines of the time and these men like writing in these letters about like, is it a good idea for me to match my spats to my waistcoat? Is that too much? And I was like, I can't even imagine a guy today being like, this concerned about whether the pinstripe in his trousers matches his necktie kind of thing. But men at the time, they were like, I have heard, a rumor that the bowler hat is entirely out of fashion. Is that true? I must know immediately.
I love that so much.
I know I would love to bring that like level of, and also just, like the way that clothes were made, instead of having like a million pieces of cheap clothes the way that we often have now, they had a smaller wardrobe of things that were made by hand. And I kind of, I miss the sort of artisan-ness, ness of things that existed in the Edwardian era, where the things that you bought, like the perfume and the cosmetics and the clothes and all things like that, were generally made by hand.
Yeah, and probably better for the environment too. Like,
yes, definitely.
I'm sure they did a lot of stuff that was not that good for the environment.
Absolutely.
You're right about that, definitely. And it just contributes to the like sort of, I think, the feeling we have about that time period, that like it just was this sort of romantic time period, not in the sense of like, romantic relationships, but in the sense of like the sort of overall like romantic feeling of being in this sort of beautiful era in the past, with these, sort of beautiful buildings, the clothes, the carriages, the fog, all that stuff. And it really was the last time, I think, that things were like that, because really what put an end to that was World War One.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, I think that wraps it up for all of our questions. And for our live as well, our little tea party. Again, we want to say a huge thank you and a huge congratulations to Cassie for the release of Chain of Iron.
Yes.
We are all so excited to be reading this. Sobbing our eyes out.
Yeah, you'll have to think you're finished if you feel like it was a painful, emotional cliffhanger.
Oh, you will definitely be hearing from me. Don't worry about it.
You'll probably see lots of videos of me crying, because that's all I'm going to
do.
I don't get out of the house much these days, so that sounds great.
Definitely. Yes, Cassie, thank you so much for joining us for our little Victorian tea party.
Of course. It was lovely to see you guys. Thank you for having me over for tea.
Yes, you too. Times.
There's bubble tea in this.
I love it.
That's genius. I should have done that.
Yeah.
Like, it's tea. It counts. I invited a British friend of mine once to come get bubble tea with me in New York, and this was like 2002 or something. Bubble tea had just started popping up in New York, even though I know it's been popular in Taiwan and in Hong Kong for a long time. And so we just started getting it, and I got him like this big bubble tea, and I was like, here you go. You love tea, you're English, you try it. And he took like a sip of it and spit it all over the
The great tea divide.
Tea. The British are more tea than we are. It was lovely to see you and to get to hang out with you.
It was lovely to see you too. Thank you so much.
Happy release day.
Happy release day.
To everyone watching, don't forget to go pick up your own copy of Chain of Iron, which is in stores now.
Get ready to cry
along with us. Cry along with us.
For the ride.
Stopping by to tea party with us.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for watching.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.